I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's News Update. The possible nomination of former Republican Senator Chuck Hagel as the next U.S. Secretary of Defense has many in the Jewish community greatly concerned. Jerusalem Post columnist and frequent Shalom TV guest Issi Liebler has called Hagel one of the most hostile antagonists of Israel in the mainstream political arena, citing that Hagel, among other things, refused to sign a Senate letter supporting Israel during the Second Intifada and rejected efforts to persuade the European Union to ban Hezbollah as a terror organization. Hagel has also called Israel's policies apartheid and has questioned the patriotism of the American Jewish community, accusing them of displaying dual loyalties. The American Jewish Committee has now responded to an op-ed piece in Thursday's New York Times called "Don't Let Pro-Israel Extremists Sink Chuck Hagel." The piece was written by former Washington correspondent for the New York Jewish Week, James Besser, who says that American Jewish leaders are letting extremists set the pro-Israel agenda in Washington. The AJC strongly rejects Besser's claims in the piece that a group of wealthy right-wing zealots now call the shots in American Jewry, and that they have intimidated mainstream groups like the AJC, who Besser specifically mentions, and brought them into their extremist agenda. AJC Executive Director David Harris calls Besser's claims absolute rubbish. He says the AJC has no such donors as Besser suggests and would never yield to such donors who would want to sway the organization to their own political agenda. Decision-making and direction of the AJC, Harris stated, are determined by AJC's Board of Governors through discussion and debate, and not according to the whim or will of groups on either the far right or far left, for that matter. Harris added there are good reasons to be concerned about Hagel in the Pentagon, and one need not be a zealot or extremist to hold such views. The BDS movement, a campaign to delegitimize the state of Israel through boycotts, divestment, and sanctions, continues to rear its head across the globe. Those in the BDS movement seek to demonize and isolate Israel by claiming the Jewish state is in violation of international law by building settlements, and criticizes Israel for what it calls the unfair treatment of the Palestinians. Recently, a fund in New Zealand, which invests billions of dollars on behalf of that country's government, announced it will divest from the Israeli multinational company Africa Israel due to Israel's construction of homes in the West Bank. In Canada, a graduate student union at the University of Toronto recently voted to endorse the BDS campaign against Israel, passing a resolution calling upon the university to, quote, refrain from investing in all companies complicit in violations of international law, unquote, divesting from companies including BAE Systems, Northrop Grumman, and Hewlett-Packard. And last week at its 53rd National Conference, the African National Congress endorsed the BDS campaign against Israel, adopting policies that urge South Africans to support any Palestinian campaigns that, quote, pressure Israel to end its violations of international law, as well as policies that affirm the country's unapologetic view that the Palestinians are the victims and the oppressed in the conflict with Israel. South Africa's Chief Rabbi Warren Goldstein, together with a group of the country's Christian leaders, urged the ANC to support both Israel and the Palestinians in their struggle for a peaceful solution, publishing an open letter stating that when South Africa's ruling party chooses sides in this bitter conflict, our country loses the credibility to be a voice for peace between the parties, and only the agenda of conflict is served. Such actions impede a peaceful solution that would enable Jews to live in their ancient biblical land in peace side by side with their Muslim neighbors. At the same time, the Jerusalem Post reports that a similar BDS effort aimed at the academic community in Great Britain was rejected this week. British Ambassador Matthew Gould said his government was rejecting all calls for academic boycotts. Gould made his statement defending Israel while accepting an honorary doctorate at Ben Gurion University of the Negev. Hawaii's lieutenant governor has been named to replace the late U.S. Senator and great friend of Israel and the Jewish people, Daniel Inouye. Hawaii's Governor Neil Abercrombie named Lieutenant Governor Brian Schatz, who is Jewish and a former chairman of the state Democratic Party, to replace Inouye, who passed away last week. At a press conference, Schatz said he was humbled by the opportunity and said that no one could fill Inouye's shoes. Before Inouye died, he had conveyed his request to Hawaii's governor that Representative Colleen Hanabusa fill his Senate seat. Inouye's chief of staff said in a statement on Wednesday after Schatz was named that while Inouye's office was disappointed that his wish was not honored, they wished Schatz the best of luck. And finally today, the Simon Wiesenthal Center has condemned the placement of a statue of Adolf Hitler in the area of the Warsaw Ghetto. Italian artist Maurizio Catalan's depicted Hitler kneeling in prayer as part of an exhibition of Catalan's work at the Center for Contemporary Art in Warsaw. The statue has been placed outside of the museum and sits behind a gate at 14 Proźna Street, the center of what used to be the Warsaw Ghetto, causing outrage among many in Poland, Jews and Christians alike, and across the Jewish world. The Simon Wiesenthal Center's Israel director Ephraim Zuroff called the intentional placement of the praying Hitler statue in the area in which tens of thousands of Jews were murdered and hundreds of thousands deported to their death a senseless provocation, which he said insults the memory of the victims of the Holocaust. Zuroff said Hitler's only prayer was to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. And that's Shalom TV's News Update. I'm Teisha Bader.